What you trying to say?
Something a little lighter than sex. Let's talk about education and empowering Black people. Completely switch the topic. So I know all of you guys have probably seen on the Shade Room, because that's where I get a lot of my news, but probably just in general. Recently, Condoleezza Rice, she was on The View, and she was kind of sharing her views on the critical race theory. And one of the things that she was talking about in the audience is that she feels as though she doesn't want kids to be taught in school so much so about, or she doesn't want white kids to feel the guilt of what their ancestors did. And she also wants Black kids to feel empowered in school. She wants them to feel beautiful. So she does want us to learn the history, the African American history, but she does not want white people to feel guilty. And so there was a lot of controversy around that, because some people do feel as though, no, like, I feel some type of way and I want my white counterparts or my white colleagues to feel what I feel. Like, I want them to feel the guilt of what their grandparents have done. I don't want to just go on and then feel happy and etc. So with that being said, I just wanted to know, how do you guys feel about that? Do you feel as though in the school system you want white kids to feel guilty about what their grandparents have done, about slavery, about the microaggressions, all of that? Is that something that should be taught in the school system? Is that something that they should feel on a day-to-day basis when they run into you in the grocery store? How do you feel about that?
I got to jump in on this. It's, Condoleezza, she comes across that statement, and what she said to me sounds like an apologist, a white apologist. Because number one, why should we be sympathetic about how other people feel when, especially African Americans, and every minority has been systematically abused to the point where self-esteem, economically, we've been deprived in this society, and we still have to try to figure out who we are. And the only thing you get in history books right now in schools, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and you get your Black History Month. But the cruelty of slavery needs to be taught. We can never be free as a nation and truly be emancipated unless we tell the truth about what happened. And that's still why things like the Civil War and the behaviors and attitudes are still being played out in our voting system in that January 6th that just happened. It's because we have not told the truth. And people who are in a dominant culture still think they have a right to this culture and everybody else is dregs on society. And that's simply not true. And here's the other thing, right? How about how we feel, right? Screw how somebody else feels. Exactly. All right? That's just it. We're always trying to placate or make it, in other words, appease what white people think. And I'm not a person, I love all people. But here's the thing. My voice matters just as much as a white person. My feelings matter just as much as a white person, anybody else. So what Condoleezza said, it's like, look, you sound like an apologist to me.
Yeah. I got a lot of passion behind what you were saying, David.
Yeah, I ain't going front. I'm reaching in my wallet right now because I feel like this is a collection plate moment to make sure that we send our speaker home blessed. I agree with David. And let's just be honest. Do you really think that they feel guilty? Do you really think that white people are like, oh, my God, that we did it again? Why?
But Why? Do you think they're...
Because, honestly, just by the actions that I see on a daily basis, I don't care if you feel guilty. Tell the truth. I really don't care. Right. Tell the truth, and the truth needs to be out there. Your folks, whether you feel guilty or not, did this. This is what they did. And this is not only what they did to just the Afro-American experience, but what did they do to the Indians? What did they do to everybody? I want the whole truth told. Not just how it just pertains to us as Black people, but everybody. We need to see it. And it needs to be put on display. I don't care how you feel about something that happened 2,000 years ago. If that's keeping you up at night, I don't know what's wrong with you. You still in first place. Yeah. How sad are you gonna feel?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And I think because they are in first place, in your words, they want to control how we talk about them being in first place. That is the epitome of the supremacist attitude, and them feeling like not only are we in first place, We subjugated you for all these years. We have all the rules, the laws, financial institutions, prison systems, all geared against you and toward us. And now when you talk about it, I don't want you to hurt my feelings when you talk to my children about it. Really, it's when you talk to my children about it. When you teach my children about what me and my grandpappies did, I don't want my children to feel bad about their heritage, because one of the things that and I got to be careful because I have a lot of passion about this. And I
hear it in your voice.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel it. I see them getting ready to hit the table.
Whenever I get passionate, I start using big words. So if I start using big words, I'm there.
I'm waiting on one of them SAT words right now. I'm getting ready to write it there.
One of the things that I feel so strongly about is that the things that they are trying to keep us from talking about are things that are addressing their heritage, their lineage, their history. And they love these monuments to their history. They love the lifting up of the patriarchs, of the things that they've done in the world, in the United States, and they herald them because they feel a sense of pride and honor toward the work in the dedication and the determination and the things that they've strived and the things they had to overcome. They had to overcome all these different things coming from Europe and coming from England or coming from there to get here, and we made it by our bootstraps.
But we don't have that in the history books.
But they failed to realize that your overcoming was because we did all the work.
Yeah.
But we did all the work.
This is the thing, and white people. Honestly, I'm sorry. I hate to throw it out there like that. There's a comedy special that Chris Rock put out a couple years ago called "Kill the Messenger" or "Don't Kill the Messenger." I forgot how it goes, but he said in situations, people that have the most stuff lose their voice because it doesn't make sense for the people that had the most to talk about people that had the least. People that have the least are always going to talk about people that have the most. Just let people say whatever they want to say. We still are in first place. Exactly. If you would just shut up and take it and understand that it's because you have more. Yeah. People are going to talk about you. People always talk about the person who has the most. Yeah. Just get over it. But you want your cake. You want to eat it. You want to do this. You want to do this, that, and the third. You can't have it that way and expect people to shut up. That's not how it's going to work. People are going to continue to talk. Just let them talk. And you'll still be in first place.
And I think that also African American students need to have a space where they can let out their feelings and their anger or just understand their history. Like one of you all said earlier today, we skip over slavery. We skip over all of the things that have gone on in our history. We just kind of talk about, okay, MLK Day. Let's draw a picture of him. Let's go to downtown D.C.
Let's give you a holiday called Juneteenth, which is not the day that slavery ended, but the day that the last people who found out slavery ended heard about it.
Exactly. And so we just kind of bypass that. And so I feel like a lot of African American students are not really learning about all this information, and they're going off to college and not knowing how to really assert themselves, or not really knowing how to speak up for themselves, or not even knowing how to have these debates as they get older and have these conversations with possibly their white colleagues, because they don't know. They have no foundation or understanding of it. But I do kind of want to turn the conversation just a little bit, because I have started to work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, and I had this conversation. Oh yeah, look at me! I had this conversation.
New job, having
new job, more money, more problems. Okay, it's not all glamorous, but I had this conversation with some leadership at my job, and one of my leaders was talking about how white people can be the product of or experience microaggressions. And I kind of was taken aback of that. And she had talked about how there was a situation where it was mostly a room full of women. And one of the women had pointed to one of the white men and said, you're the token white man in this room. And so she stopped the conversation and said, hey, that's not, allowed. And this, we still have to understand that you can't just use that type of language in this room. Like, we have to understand that he's not just the token white man in this room. How would you feel if someone said you were the token African American woman in the room, right? And so she didn't necessarily say that to the person, but that's the gist of what she was saying. And so I was kind of taken aback in that meeting because I didn't realize that, white people, white males, white females could experience microaggression. So what do you guys
she was commenting about was the common social decency of not belittling someone in public for them being a minority. That was what she was talking about. That's the principle. This white male is a minority in this room. Let's not mock or criticize him, which is the same thing we've been saying our whole history of this country.
Exactly.
And so what that poor white man was experiencing, what it felt like to be black for 15 minutes of a meeting. And so correctly, she was correcting that behavior, but this country has been baptized in this type of behavior as a culture, as a lifestyle, and I call it the white male cartel, because everybody is fighting against the white male. Every culture, women have had to fight to vote, have had to fight for their rights. Black people have had to fight for their rights, to fight for vote. The natives, indigenous people of this land have had to fight for their rights to exist in the land that they were born in. Everybody has had to fight against the white male dominance. And it's that white male dominance, when they feel that thing that they've been giving, it's like, ooh, that hurts. I don't want to talk about that. Yeah. Welcome to America.
Yeah, absolutely.
White man.
Yeah.
And to me,
been here all of 5 minutes and then won't complain.
Yeah, and it's just like the insensitive all of a sudden becoming sensitive. That's the irony of it. But I'll say this, right? When it comes to that, the greater point, Chloe, that you raise is that if we're going to be more sensitive, let's put that conversation out there. But at the same time, to your point, Heath, that you said, let's put some historical context too.
Right.
Yeah, and if it's going to help improve things, I say yeah, because the conversation has to be out there before we can even begin to make strides toward, becoming more sensitive, becoming better in the workplace and larger society.
Yeah, and I just think just that conversation, the Condoleezza Rice incident, I feel as though a lot of people want white people to feel comfortable, and not that that's, for some people that's a problem. And I do think that no matter your race, your gender identity, your sexual orientation, your age, you should be treated right and appropriately. But I do think that we still need to have these conversations about race, and sometimes that's going to make people feel uncomfortable, that's going to make people feel angry, and that's going to make people act out a certain type of way.
Well, let me just toss this in really quickly. Our First Amendment right is the right to speak, right to have a voice. And Heath, that's what's so great about this platform that you've developed, because here's the truth of the matter. Condoleezza Rice made this statement, defending him. I believe she's been an apologist, but as soon as one of her fellow officers who served with her, Colin Powell, died, General Colin Powell, one of the most indecent people in the world, Donald Trump, came out and made disparaging statements about General Powell. Where's Condoleezza Rice's voice now? How do we feel? Because when he died, I knew it was coming. And that man has no right to put his mouth on our history. And that's why we must put our voices out there.
Right.
That's why we must make it plain that you cannot say what you want to say, and then when we criticize you, then you want us to be sensitive.
Yeah.
Because you want to control the narrative.
Right.
Yep.
Right. That whole control of the narrative thing is a beast.
Yeah.
And I refuse.
I refuse as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of controlling the narrative, to your point, David, I do think that what Donald Trump said was ridiculous, and everything out of his mouth is we all know that it's trifling, but I do think that this whole Condoleezza thing, just from a PR perspective, I feel as though because Colin Powell died of COVID, that's why Condoleezza started becoming to be shown in the news. It was kind of a way to publicize her because she's so close to Colin Powell, but that's a story for another day. I say all that to
drop that there and just walk away. And you said all that to say?
I said all that to say.
Like the way you threw that grenade in the
Thank you. Y'all can just sit and soak on that a little bit. It's up to the person how they feel about how white people show up in the workspace and how white people show up in education. It's not going to change unless we start having those conversations and speaking up about these topics. So that's all I wanted to say. And I'll just hand it off right on over to David to talk about his topic that is probably a little bit lighter than this subject that we just talked about.
Well, I wish it was, Chloe, but thank you. You know, look, this is something that really hit the news as a